Of course. F this game.
Welcome back, everyone. As I said from last month's video, I was going to do something unexpected. For this month, I decided to try playing a board game. Apparently, board games in recent years have gone through a sort of revolution. You probably remember board games like Risk, Monopoly, or Settlers of Catan. These player versus player games were all about waiting for your turn and hope you got lucky with dice rolls or drawing the right cards to get ahead and hopefully beat all other players. Nothing was worse like losing early on and then waiting around for the rest of the players to finish. Lately, most board games I've been playing with my wife and friends are more cooperative focused, such as Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Sniper Elite, Nemesis, and The Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle-earth. This allows everyone to communicate and work together to overcome the challenges of the game, even when it's not your turn. While I personally prefer co-op based games, which isn't to say player versus player is bad, but board games seem to be going in this direction. Even the board game Nemesis, which is a semi-cooperative player versus player board game, most of the time you start off cooperatively, only towards the end of the game it can turn into player versus player. Most of the time you start off cooperatively, only towards the end of the game can it turn into player versus player, but some players may still cooperate all the way through. But this video is all about Mansions of Madness, which is cooperative, but there is the possibility of it turning into player versus player, which I'll explain later in the gameplay section. Overall, it is a fun board game for the whole family. It's set in the Cthulhu mythos from H.P. Lovecraft, which is perfect for the month of October for Halloween. It's not the scariest board game, but while playing, the background music still creates a creepy atmosphere, especially if you can hook it up to a TV. As usual, we're going to go through the story, or rather, I'm going to narrate my playthrough of the first scenario, so spoiler warning if you don't want to know the general layout or what to expect in the first scenario. In the future, I am thinking about trying out each other's scenarios and make follow-up reviews on each of them. Depending on how well these videos do, I may even get the expansions and try them out to show you all. So please subscribe, like the video, and comment below to show your support for the channel and let the algorithm do its magical work. Let's roll some dice.
Are you serious?
Some quick history. Mansions of Madness was designed by Corey and published by Fantasy Flight Games, known for board and card games like Twilight Imperium, Game of Thrones, Battlestar Galactica, and The Lord of the Rings. They made a few board games from popular video games like Doom, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft. The first edition of Mansions of Madness came out in 2011. The game was set up like Dungeons & Dragons. It required 2 to 5 players, and one of them had to take on the role as Keeper. This player would set up the game, and depending on what storyline the players chose, the Keeper would set up the map, place clues and traps, as well as play as the monsters. It took a long time to set up and for the Keeper to read ahead and figure out what happens next. The game got 2 expansions, Forbidden Alchemy and Call of the Wild. Then in 2016, a second edition was released and was designed by Nikki Valens. This edition reassigned the role of the Keeper from a player to an app. Now you can play solo or up to 5 players. Most of the work is done by the app, while the players only need to worry about setting up the minis, dice, cards, and rooms. You can use the free app on your phone, tablet, or computer. They have made the first edition compatible with the second edition through the app, under My Collection. Now on to gameplay. It's simple and straightforward, but my first 3 playthroughs ended in a loss. I kept getting screwed over from the dice rolls. That's just the name of the game when it comes to dice. Sometimes you get good rolls and breeze through the challenges. Other times it's frustrating and feels impossible despite doing everything right. If it lands on a star, that's one success. If it lands on a magnifying glass, then you have a choice to use one of your clue tokens to turn that into a success. These are tokens you collect through the game, either from interacting with stuff or your character abilities. There's 8 characters to choose from. Each has their own unique ability and they have different stats. Everyone has 2 kinds of health, damage and horror. If you hit this number, you will have to draw a special damage card that will make things harder for you, or hitting the max horror number will make you go insane, which you keep secret from the other players and do whatever the insane card tells you to do. This is where the player versus player aspect may come in. There might be a different win condition just for you, which involves getting the players killed, or they cannot succeed. The stats on the side are strength, which I found to be important to have because strength was used 9 times out of 10 during combat. Agility is mainly used for range combat, but it sometimes pops up during normal combat. Observation is used for searching and puzzles. Lore is for spellcaster and puzzle solving. Influence is used when talking with NPCs, which makes this stat tricky. Some scenarios have more NPCs than others, which makes this stat very useful or completely useless. Finally, will is used a lot for defense, usually in horror checks. During the game, the app will tell you to roll one of these stats. You look at your card and roll that number of dice. Then, depending on the results, for example, you might need to roll enough successes to negate the incoming damage. Other times might be you just needing at least 2 successes to succeed. Attacking has you first select what kind of attack, then roll to see if you hit. It might tell you specifically how much damage you do, or depending on how many successes you rolled, and use that as your damage. You might get to add extra damage, such as a weapon with a number on it. The party will start in a room and each person gets to do 2 actions. Either to move, use a card in their inventory if it says action, use an ability if it also says action, to trade with other players, to pick up or drop an item, or interact with something on the map. The game will tell you what is your goal, but usually it involves exploring the map and gathering evidence to make the final part easier to complete. The app will tell you what icons to place on the board, and when you interact with the icon. The app will tell you to roll some dice and see if it succeeded or failed. You don't know how many successes it requires, so you may not have enough the first time around, but you can try again if you have another action to use. Other times it might give you bonus clues, take damage, or give you a choice to unlock powers. You might need to solve puzzles such as what number combination. Take a guess, then it will tell you a star means a number is right and it's in the correct spot, while the magnifying glass means you have a correct number, but it's in the wrong spot. Clicking on the red lantern reveals another area of the map. Hopefully, you have enough room on your desk because mine was pretty small. The app will tell you what map to find, where to place it, and any additional pieces to add. Some pieces have a door on them, but the app will tell you to cover it with a shelf. After all the players do their 2 actions, you'll hit the arrow on the app to go into the Mythos phase. An event will occur and tell you who or where the event is happening. Usually this involves a dice roll to not take damage. Then the app might spawn enemies, such as monsters, cultists, or insane people. The app will tell you where to place the enemy, then move to the closest player, and who to attack if they are on a space with the player. Just follow what it says and hope you roll well enough to avoid the damage. Then the app will tell you if a character is in the same space as an enemy, you must do a horror check. Again, read what it says and roll to see if you have to take some horror damage. If you do have to draw a damage card, hopefully it's minor, because then you just flip it down. Otherwise, some might have some conditions that you will need to remember to follow, which I'll admit I sometimes would forget about. That's mainly the game. Explore around, complete the main objective, and hopefully survive all the way through. If a player dies, you have until the end of your next turn to finish, otherwise everyone loses. Overall, it is a great board game, and I enjoy playing it every time. The only downside is the game is a bit pricey at around $85 for the base game. Then each expansion can range from $30 to $70. It would be nice if there were a bundle for everything and at a fair price. But if you end up liking this as much as I do, I might start collecting each expansion. Definitely check this game out and invite your friends to play. Alright, let's get on with the investigation of Cycle of Eternity. For this playthrough, I picked William, who gets a clue token after defeating a monster, and Rita can move an extra space as part of a move action. We start off with a 2x4, bandages, holy cross, kerosene lantern, feed the mind, and each investigator starts with 2 clues.
You slump into your office chair after another long day of interviews. You've been investigating the disappearances surrounding a wealthy neighborhood for 2 weeks, but you have nothing to show for it. The telephone rings. You answer and hear the panicked voice of an older man.
Is this the investigator who visited the Vanderbilt estate?
You flip through the files on your desk. William Vanderbilt, a wealthy bachelor, mother recently deceased. He has refused to meet with you, but you were able to speak to several members of his serving staff.
This is Eugene, Mr. Vanderbilt's butler. I didn't know who else to call. The police think I'm crazy. Unnatural things have started happening here. I'm worried for my master. I think he's in danger. Please, help.
Finally, a lead. You hang up the phone, throw on your coat, and leave for the Vanderbilt estate.
Rita and William's car rattles up the uneven drive, pulling to a stop in front of the estate. Several cars and carriages are parked along the drive. However, the butler who contacted them is nowhere to be seen. They knock on the large oak door to no response. Fearing something has happened, they try the handle, and the door swings open into a lavish entryway. I place the lobby tile and walls as indicated. They step into the warmth of the house. A strange stillness hangs in the air, and their footsteps echo through the quiet entrance. I place my investigators as indicated. In the middle of the lobby sits a table with a small pile of papers. A table with a telephone sits at the top of the staircase on the right. A mysterious painting of a nighttime landscape looms over the lobby staircases. The silence is broken by the muffled shouts and sounds of crashing pots and pans coming from the door on their left. 3 other doors lead into the mansion. I start with Rita and have her open the left door where the noise is coming from. The door swings open to reveal a dining room in chaos. An aging man in a tailcoat scrambles through a serving window into the kitchen as he tries to escape a strange, black creature withering on the dining room table. I place the dining room tile and wall as indicated. The creature turns to face Rita. Its black, serpentine body shifts and changes, playing tricks on her eyes as she tries to focus on it. The creature unflurries its leathery wings and unleashes a blood-curdling screech. Then, she suffers 2 horror. I roll 1 success and a clue. I spend the 1 clue to negate all horror. In the center of the dining table, a carving knife sits embedded in a roast. A china cabinet stands against the wall, though it looks to have been repurposed to store all manner of knickknacks. Rita can see a kitchen through the serving window. Most of the cabinets are ajar due to the food preparation, but one that has been locked shut with a chain catches her attention. In the kitchen, she can also see that someone has left the refrigerator open. Water leaks out into a puddle on the floor. She spots the old man she saw climbing through the serving window, huddling in the corner behind the oven. Sweat beads off his brow, and his eyes bulge in terror. This is Eugene, the butler. I move Rita into the room and attack the hunting horror with an unarmed attack. Rita leaps into the air and kicks her legs out toward the beast. I rolled 2 clues, but with only 1 clue token left, it wasn't enough to succeed in the attack. The creature dodges, and with her legs committed to the attack, she lands hard on the ground, suffering 1 face-down damage. I then move Will into the room and attack the hunting horror with a heavy weapon. Will's missed swing slams into the ground, sending a shock up his arm. He struggles to keep a good grip on his weapon. Rolling 3 successes, Will grit his teeth and swung again, this time scoring a hit, dealing damage equal to the weapon's damage of 2 plus the test results of 3 for a total of 5, killing the monster. The creature lurches to the ground, dead. Hearing the monster's final fate, the old man in the kitchen cautiously steps out. The filthy kitchenware and rotting food is strewn about the table. Now, I made a mistake here. Since it was asking who has suffered the most horror, I for some reason thought nothing happened since neither of them have suffered any horror. But I should have hit resolve event for at least one of them. My mistake, guys. Rita talks to the butler, The old man brushes himself off and tries to calm his shaken composure.
You came just in time. Thank you so much for saving me. The name is Eugene. We spoke earlier today. I have heard noises from the attic, but the door is locked. I think something bad is going to happen.
Where's Mr. Vanderbilt?
Those ruffians took Mr. Vanderbilt to the attic. You can get to the attic through the west door of the hall, but the door is locked. Mr. Vanderbilt likely keeps the key in his. Wait, I'm not sure if he would want me trusting you with this.
Rolled 1 success.
No, Mr. Vanderbilt would not like me talking about that with strangers.
I rolled again and got a clue. I used Rita's last clue token for now to turn that into a success.
All right, Vanderbilt has a hidden office that he often retreats to. The door is hidden in the estate's library, which is through the east door when you get into the hall. It uses a very strange lock hidden behind a bookshelf.
The butler instructs them on how to open the secret door in the library. Rita gains 1 clue. William moves over to the part of the room with the china cabinet and searches it. The cabinet holds candles, wooden statuettes, stones, beads, and other random objects. Will tries to discern what they could be for. Rolled a success and spent a clue token for 2 successes. As Will digs through the objects, he begins to form a hunch that makes him uneasy. He's heard of objects such as these found at the site of occult rituals. They could prove useful to his investigation. He obtains some circumstantial evidence and 1 clue. He then moves back to the lobby. The ground is marked with arcane symbols. Crude etchings on the ground seem to lead Will towards his destination. Will rolls a success and spends a clue. The arrows lead him where he wanted to go. Rita checks out the kitchen and sees the refrigerator has been left cracked open, leaking a pool of water onto the floor. She pulls open the heavy refrigerator door and reaches in to rifle through the haphazardly stacked food. She suddenly finds herself staring into the void between worlds. The infinite wisdom of the lurker at the threshold fills her mind. She suffers 1 face-down horror and gains 2 clues. Rita then moves over to the other side of the kitchen. Will heads upstairs and goes through the northern door. The door opens into a dim hallway that winds through the heart of the mansion. I place the hall corner 2 and hall end tiles. A wooden desk stands against the wall. Someone acting in a hurry knocked over a stack of papers. 3 doors lead to other rooms of the mansion. Rita runs frantically from some unseen evil only to lose her footing. Rolled and got at least 2 successes. She stumbles but catches herself before falling. Rita checks the cabinet with a chain wrapped around the handles. The chain is sturdy, but the cabinet doors are made of thin wood. She thinks she could break one of the doors off. Rolls 1 success and spends 2 clue tokens for 3 successes. The flimsy wood cracks as she pulls the cabinet door off its hinges. Rita picks up the sedative item, then moves 3 spaces to get to the lobby. Will reads the mundane paperwork. He finds a weathered page covered in a strange script. Someone has scrawled a note in English across the top of the page.
Speak these words for great power.
Will's curiosity got the better of him and decided to recite the script. The eldritch words take on a life of their own as he speaks them, reshaping his mind with new understanding of the script he is looking at. The lights flicker and he hears a whisper in his ear.
Power comes with a price.
He gains the Wither spell, then moves 2 spaces into the hallway. The clues Will and Rita have gathered disprove everything they once knew about the world. Since Will has the most clues, this event affects him. He reviews his notes, attempting to reconcile his new information with the world he remembers. Rolled 2 successes. Will was determined that his past ignorance was understandable but dangerous. Then Will hears a voice.
And now you will pay the price for that power.
The lights flicker and the air crackles with electricity. Suddenly, reality seems to split before him, and a terrifying creature slips through from an unknown space beyond. A deep one spawns in the hallway. It moves into range and attacks Will. The deep one wraps its arms around him and squeezes with bone-crushing force. rolled a success and spent a clue token to make it 2 successes. Will managed to strike the creature in the throat before struggling free. The creature even took 1 damage. Because Will is in the space of a monster, he must resolve a horror check. A thick, fishy aroma fills the air as the Deep One exhales hideous fumes. Rolled 2 successes. The stench is horrid, but Will keeps his calm. Will attacks with a heavy weapon. He and the Deep One wrestle for control of his weapon. Unfortunately, I rolled 2 clues, but I only had 1 clue token left. Will could only maintain his grip on the weapon. Will uses his second action to attack again with his heavy weapon. Each time he swings his weapon, the Deep One dodges desperately aside. Rolled 2 successes. The Deep One tires first. The monster suffers damage equal to the weapon's damage and test results for a total of 4, killing the Deep One. Rita searches through the papers on the table. The papers stacked on the table are invitations marked with today's date. The stars have come round to their positions in the cycle of eternity. The Vanderbilt Astronomy Association cordially invites you to a celebratory evening. Rita gains a clue, then moves up the stairs. Will jerks as some insect stings his neck. The wound is tiny, but releases a foul green pus. Will suffers 1 face-down damage and 1 horror. A robed figure bursts into the entrance and yells, "There's someone here!" Rita and Will hear a muffled response from another part of the estate. "Get rid of them!" A cultist spawns in the lobby, then moves upstairs to Rita and attacks. The cultist mumbles a dark chant. Rita feels something withering within her skin, opening old wounds. Rolled 3 successes to negate that damage. Then flipped the damage card and it says minor injury, so I flipped it back down. She then has to resolve a horror check. The cultist begins a slow chant, soon joined by other cultists throughout the area. Rolled 2 successes to negate the horror. Rita right away attacks unarmed. As she grapples the cultist, she attempts to lift the cultist off his feet. Rolled a success and used 2 clue tokens to succeed with the attack. The cultist struggles as Rita throws the cultist into the air and hurls it with a grunt. The cultist suffers 3 damage and dies as he lands down the stairs, bleeding out. Rita then searches the mysterious painting. Shadowy figures can be seen amidst the landscape. However, something in the stars catches her interest. Rolled 2 successes. Rita identified several of the specks of light in the sky as planets. They are all occupying the same section of the sky, as if coming into alignment, not unlike the planets in the sky tonight. Beneath the painting, a plaque reads, "In memory of Lilith Vanderbilt." Rita gained 2 clues. Will then searches a desk against the wall, being used as an end table. It has several large drawers locked by a combination. Will needs to figure out the 3-code combination using 5 numbers, and some could be the same number. First guess of 123 had a correct number but in the wrong place. Then 245 had the same result. Then 532 gave me a correct number and space, which could be any one of these 3. Will tried only 2s, which made it clear 2 wasn't in here at all, and 5 or 3 were correct. 535 had the right spot, but the only change was another 5, which was in the wrong spot. Trying 553 made it clear both 5s were correct. Looking back on the first couple of tries, it became clear that the 1 was the correct number, but needed to be on the last space. Will figured out the combination, and the drawer popped open with an audible click. Inside, he finds a grotesque statuette of an octopoid dragon and something else that might be of use. He picks up the King James Bible, grotesque stone, and 1 clue token. Rita glances ahead only to see herself from behind, her sight stretched thin and her mind nearing the breaking point. With only 3 dice to roll, a miracle of 3 successes negating all 3 horror happened. Whew. Rita then moves to open the drawer, but warped wood has left it stuck shut. Rolled another 3 successes. With a powerful tug, she opens the drawer, causing the phone to go crashing to the ground. Inside the drawer, she finds holy water that looks like it has been sitting there for quite some time. Then Rita moves to join up with Will. Will then opens the door labeled library. The door creaks on its hinges as he pushes it open to reveal the library. Bookshelves line the walls. I place the library and a wall. A pile of research papers that have been recently used sits on a small wooden desk. A robed figure is pushing a bookshelf back into place. The robed figure draws out a strange idol and begins chanting. Before Will's very eyes, a terrifying creature appears out of thin air. The cult member speaks some words to it in a strange language, but the creature turns on him, tearing him to pieces before their very eyes. Rolled 2 successes to negate the horror. Will attacks his heavy weapon. He braces himself and his weapon then swings with all his might. Now, I think I made another mistake here. I rolled only 2 successes but added my weapon damage even though it didn't explicitly say it in the text. And I added 1 because of the strength +1 symbol. Let me know in the comments of what should have happened. The light dies slowly. I place darkness in each space in the lobby. This means players in darkness can't use clue tokens unless they have a light source like a lantern or start a fire in a room. Nobody is affected by the mythos since nobody is in the lobby at the moment. Will searches the large scroll showing the solar system that is sprawled across the pile of books. The scroll is marked with the orbits of the 8 planets. A straight line is drawn out across them from the sun marked with today's date and the words planetary alignment. Will gains a clue, then peers behind the bookshelf the robed figure was moving. He sees runic circles inscribed on the wall. Will pushes aside the shelf to reveal the ritual circles the butler spoke of. He attempts to trace them as he told him. It's a 9-piece puzzle and just need to swap 2 pieces until they are all in the correct spot. First he moved these 2, then these 2, and finally these 2. Will traces a continuous line through the winding markings as the butler instructed him. The runes illuminate with a strange green light, and a wall panel pops open, revealing a secret door to a hidden study behind the wall. Will gains a clue. I place a door token. The secret panel in the wall slides open noiselessly, and Will peers into a hidden office. I place the study tile and a wall. A bookshelf filled with frightening objects is mounted on the opposite wall. An oak desk sits on the other side of the room. Will moves into the room, while Rita moves all the way into the room and searches the oak desk that has been kept in good condition. A number of papers and books are nearly stored on the desk's surface. On the desk, Rita finds what looks like a personal planner. As she picks up the book, a brass key clatters from between the pages. She turns to the page it had been holding and finds a note scrawled there.
If the alignment truly weakens the veil, I believe that it is the only moment we have to break through. I will make the necessary preparations in the attic.
Rita gains the brass key and incriminating evidence. She places the planner back onto the desk and searches through the drawers and finds some whiskey. The few lights around Will flash sporadically and somehow bring back memories of guilt and terror. Roll 2 successes to negate the 2 horror, then flip over 1 horror he has, which is a minor shock, so I flip it back down. A robed figure appears from a side door and begins searching around. Upon seeing signs of other people, the figure yells, "There is someone here!" Will and Rita hear another muffled response from another part of the estate. "Get rid of them!" I spawn a cultist in the dining room. Eugene yells in fright and flees into the entryway. The cultist moves 2 spaces, but isn't in range of anyone, so he moves another 2 spaces. Will checks out the shelf that is lined with curiosities from the mundane to the horrifying. As he scans over the various items, his eyes fall on an urn marked Lilith Vanderbilt, 1856 to 1925. He picks up the urn and finds it filled with ashes. Will smashes the urn in a cloud of ash and broken porcelain. The room seems to chill as he finds an object amidst the ashes. He picks up an Elder Ward item. He hears the sound of a woman weeping. Then Will moves 2 spaces into the hallway, while Rita sprints all the way to the door on the left of the hallway. A spell leaps unbidden into Will's mind. He attempts to decipher the spell, only needs 1 success, but unfortunately he rolled nothing. The words Will mumbles somehow twist in the air and turn into withering, shadowy tethers affixed to every limb, suffering 3 horror and becoming restrained. The first horror was sudden shock, which caused Will to drop 2 items, the ward and cross, then flipped over. Second horror was minor shock, so immediately got flipped down. Finally, he got steely resolve, which made Will become focused. Then the cultist moved in and attacked Will. The cultist mumbles a dark chant. Will feels something withering in his skin, opening old wounds. Rolled 2 clues, but only needed 1 success to negate the damage. Then flipped over the damage, which was a minor injury, so flipped it back over. Then Will resolved a horror check. The cultist calls out to the stars, begging for Will's demise. Rolled 2 successes. Will realizes he's in no danger, discarding 1 horror. Will attacks with a heavy weapon. The cultist braces to intercept Will's swing. Will attempts to drive his weapon right through the block. Rolled a success and spent a clue token for a total of 2 successes. Will's weapon crushes through the cultist's raised arms, killing it. Then, I made a mistake. I picked up both items as a free action. I tried reading the rules to find a ruling about picking up items. I did later learn it's considered a trade action. Then I made a second mistake this turn and forgot Will was restrained, so I mistakenly moved him, which was technically a third action this turn. Again, my apologies guys. Please leave a comment about every mistake I made so I can hopefully be a better Mansions of Madness player. Rita gets to the weathered door at the end of the hall. She hears bizarre noises from the other side. When she tries the handle, she finds the door is locked. A keyhole sits beneath the brass door handle. She uses the brass key she obtained from the office. As she opens the door to the unfinished attic, the stairs and walls creak as if exhaling a breath of dusty air. Everything in the room has been pushed to the sides, and a massive circle of runes has been carved into the floor. I place the attic. On the far side of the attic, furniture and other random items have been pushed up against the wall. Rita spots a sledgehammer. 2 robed figures stand across from each other over the ritual circle, chanting. The one nearest to Rita seems to be in some kind of trance and hardly acknowledges her approach. The other figure lowers the hood of his robe and points at Rita with an ornate dagger.
What are you doing on my property? You are meddling in things you do not understand, and you will die for it.
This is William Vanderbilt. He begins chanting a heinous incantation that causes reality to warp and shift. A hunting horror slips through the fabric of reality and into our world. Elsewhere in the mansion, a deep one begins breaching the barrier between worlds. The ritual circle on the ground is scattered with candles, skulls, and other trinkets. If Rita or Will could get to these ritual components, they could stop the cult's vile magics and have enough proof to condemn the Vanderbilt family. Rita moves 1 space into the room. Rita then uses the holy water to clear the 1 horror she has. Light fades from around Rita, leaving anything even inches from her face obscured. I place darkness in each space of the attic, stumbling to where she knows there was light. Her hand can feel the heat coming from it, though her eyes cannot detect the slightest illumination. Rolled a success and did not spend a clue token, so I drew 2 horrors. First horror was called Panic. Rita took another face down damage. The next horror was a minor shock. Then the cultist moves to Rita and attacks. The cultist charges forward, enveloped in a cloud of swirling shadow that burns her flesh. Rolled 2 successes to negate the damage and horror. Vanderbilt moves to attack Rita. He mumbles a dark chant. She feels something withering within her skin and suffers 2 face down damage. The hunting horror moves 3 spaces, but not close enough. The creature opens its mouth and breathes in, tasting the air, catching the scent of prey. The creature shrieks and slithers through the air to get to Will. The deep one moves and attacks Will. The deep one lashes out with its claws. Rolled 1 success. Will feels the creature's claws rip into him, and a bone-deep chill racks his body, suffering 2 damage. A ruptured eardrum and a minor injury. Now for horror checks. The hunting horror makes a strange, whistling noise that pierces through the din of flapping wings and whipping tail. Rolled 2 successes. Will covers his ears and waits for the sound to fade. Vanderbilt rolls up a sleeve to reveal row upon row of fish hooks that are buried in pallid fishy flesh, forming an obscene sigil. Rolled 2 successes to negate the horror. Will attacks the hunting horror with a heavy weapon. He channels all of his fear and aggression into one powerful swing. Rolled 1 success. The sound and feel of the impact brings a crazed smile to Will's lips. The monster suffers 2 damage from the weapon and 1 for the success, so it's still alive with 2 health. Will attacks again with a heavy weapon. As he swings, he attempts to leap upward to get a better angle of attack against the creature. Rolled 2 successes. The height he gained allowed him to strike at more vital parts, killing the hunting horror. Rita then attacks the cultist unarmed. She throws a low punch at the cultist's gut, and as the figure crawls over to avoid the first hit, she swings her other fist towards the exposed head. Rolled 2 successes. Her fist impacts her foe's temple, caving in his skull, killing the cultist. Rita then drinks the whiskey to discard both horror cards, and then smashes the bottle against the wall to now carry a bladed weapon. A strange, vaporous color fills the air in the kitchen. Nobody gets affected. The sound of a woman weeping drifts through the mansion halls, and the air grows icy cold. The ashes strewn about the office stir, and a ghostly figure rises from the shattered remains of the urn. Will rolled a success and had to use a clue token to negate the horror. Then Rita rolled 2 successes to negate the horror. Vanderbilt twitches, and a thick, wet length of kelp lashes out and seems to latch onto Rita. The cold plant matter is as heavy as chains. Rolled 1 success. The kelp constricts around her body, suffering 2 damage and becoming restrained. First damage was a minor injury, but the second damage was a grievous injury, which means she suffers another face-down damage. The deep one tackles Will and begins to bellow as it viciously pummels him with heavy, wet fists. Roll 2 successes to negate that damage. The ghost moves 1 space, but nobody is there. The spirit calls out, but there is no one to hear it. The spirit vanishes and reappears next to Will. During the horror check, the spirit coughs and stumbles about.
Someone open the door.
It wheezes out.
Let me out.
The spirit is slowly overtaken by fire, and Will can feel his own flesh begin to grow hot. Rolled 1 success and used a clue token to succeed. Will reminds himself that none of this is real. Vanderbilt brings clammy hands together in a wet, slapping sound. With each clap, a distant rumble like waves crashing against the shore sounds in the back of Rita's mind. Rolled 1 success and used a clue token to succeed. She can taste salt water in her mouth, but nothing more. Will attacks the deep one with a heavy weapon. Will's muscles tense as he throws his weight into his swing. Rolled 2 clues, which I spent both to succeed. The impact hurls the deep one aside, dealing 4 damage and moving the monster 1 space. Will then attacks the spirit with his heavy weapon. As the spirit lays a hand upon Will's weapon, it becomes bitingly cold. Will begs the ghost to leave. Rolled 2 successes. The ghost pulls back, weeping, taking 3 damage, which kills it. Wait. Will just told the thing to just leave, and it felt sad. Okay, I guess that's what happens then. Rita attacks Vanderbilt with a bladed weapon. She attempts to bat Vanderbilt's defenses aside with the flat end of her blade, or in this case, it's a whiskey bottle. rolled 4 successes. Rita takes advantage of the opening and strikes true. Vanderbilt suffers 4 damage, plus 1 for the weapon. Rita attacks again with a bladed weapon. As Rita approaches, Vanderbilt lashes out at her. Rita sidesteps the strike and lashes at the outstretched limb. Rolls 2 successes. Vanderbilt cries out in pain and surprise, then falls over after getting a cut on his arm and dies. Without warning, Rita and Will's feet take off under someone else's command. After what seems like hours, they are back where they started, and the exhausting trip ends. Will has to spend 1 clue to only take 1 face-down damage, while Rita rolled 2 successes, negating both damage. The Deep One moves back to attack Will. It lashes out with its webbed feet. The Deep One tries to sweep Will's legs from beneath him. With only 2 dice to roll, both had nothing. Will is knocked down, and the Deep One's fishy stench overwhelms him. He suffers 1 damage and 1 horror to become dazed. The damage was a minor injury. The horror was sudden shock. Drop 2 random items, which was the bandages and King James Bible. For the horror check, the Deep One opens its mouth, and a choking, wet song emerges from its throat. It is no human sound, but Will feels the creature's yearning, fear, and hate in every note. Rolled 1 success, which means 1 horror card to draw. Luckily, it was disoriented, which means Will becomes dazed, which he already is. Will attacks the Deep One with a heavy weapon. He drives his weapon into the Deep One's chest, then follows up with a series of swings to the head and shoulders. Rolled 1 success, which was enough to finish it off for good. Will then picks up his items off the ground. Rita then uses the sedative to heal 3 damage, but it ends her turn. Books, papers, and other small objects suddenly swirl through the air in the library. Nobody is affected. A deafening roar overtakes the attic as the ritual completes and a portal to another world opens. The air in the attic is sucked through the portal into some unknown abyss, and the boxes and objects stacked against the attic walls tumble to the ground and fly through the open gate. I discard the interact token and any items in the attic. The air is electric, with an unearthly energy, and the entire scene is bathed in a sickly green glow. On the other side of the massive rift, bizarre cyclopean architecture of carven rock is built at angles that defy understanding. An inhuman script adorns the structure, winding over their surfaces. Rita and Will just need to close the portal before it tears the mansion to pieces. Will uses both of his actions to move all the way over to the portal. Rita moves to the portal and attempts to close it. A rift in the very fabric of reality peer into an alien landscape. Cyclopean architecture marked with eldritch script looms on the other side. She steps through the rift into the other reality and attempts to decipher the script on the buildings. Rita sees 5 possible symbols to use and must figure out a combination of 5. First try was each symbol, which resulted in 1 correct symbol and placement, then 3 correct symbols but are in the wrong spot. I tried moving them around but got the same result. I started to think maybe the green one was in the correct spot, but I could have moved a correct symbol to a wrong spot and moved a wrong symbol into the correct spot. The third guess made it clear that green was not in the correct spot. Since Rita only had 3 guesses per action, I needed to end the turn. Rita and Will had not noticed before, but there is something strange about the walls in the attic. The more they studied them, the more the walls looked yellowed, and an awful pattern of grooves suggest claw marks. Will rolls 3 successes and Rita rolls 2 successes. Both negate the horror. Back to puzzle solving. At least we know so far 4 of these symbols do belong somewhere, but one of them isn't. Next guess, I tried moving the green and blue and just red, which gave me 2 correct symbols. Then, when I tried leaving blue, green, and red at the end, I brought back 2 other symbols. I now had 3 correct symbols, and 1 is in the wrong spot. I feel so close. Then I tried adding 2 reds, but now only 2 were right and 1 is in the wrong spot. When I brought the gray symbol back, it was clear that that was in the correct spot. I was certain the gray was correct, but had a feeling either the blue or green was right, and the red one had to be correct as well. Getting rid of the red and trying other blue and yellow symbols seemed like the same, but I still couldn't tell which was right. I tried another combination, but it got worse. I kept revisiting the other guesses, trying to piece it together. When I tried blue, yellow, gray, red, red, I was so close, with 4 correct symbols. Continuing to look at the others, I figured it was worth trying blue in the 4th spot, and I was right. I wonder how many of you actually figured it out before I did. Rita and Will deciphered the arcane script, and it reveals the secret of the cult's magic to them. They believe that with this knowledge, they could reverse the ritual using the cult's own circle. Will moves over. Rita and Will are wary to the bone, and their strength is now ebbing. Flip over 2 damage cards. Both of Will's cards are minor injuries. Both of Rita's cards are also minor injuries. That was lucky. Rita then moves over and attempts to perform the ritual. A circle of runes is carved into the wooden floor and adorned with various ritual objects. It was recently used to create a rift, but Rita and Will think it could have been used to reverse it by applying information they have gathered about the ritual, or by using their own occult knowledge. I first rolled 2 successes and a clue token to make that 3. Rita recites the chant and performs the motions. They can feel the energy shift in the room. The ritual is closer to completion. Will makes an attempt and rolls 2 clues and spends 2 tokens to help out. Still not enough. He tries again and gets 2 successes. Rita and Will have completed all of the necessary actions and chants. They speak the eldritch words and complete the counter ritual. Energy swirls from the ritual circle, and the rift knits closed in front of their eyes. An eerie quiet falls over the mansion. It is over.
You finish the incantation and scatter the last of the components across the cult's ritual circle. For a moment, you worry nothing will happen. But then, a sickly green energy leaps from the circle and surrounds the shimmering gateway. As you watch, the ragged edges of the portal knit together, sealing off the other world, leaving no evidence it was ever there. A meteor, the official story says, ironically struck the home of amateur astronomer William Vanderbilt. You alone know the truth of what happened that night, but who could ever believe you?
In conclusion, Mansions of Madness is a fun board game. Despite making some mistakes, I don't think it made a huge impact on the game. I think at worst I could have had to do 1 or 2 extra turns. There is so much to keep track of, it feels a bit overwhelming. Not just in the mistakes I made, but all the items I had collected. I'm one of those players who will hold on to items until the end of time unless I know I have to use it to beat a boss or an obstacle. I'm sure there were moments I could have used some of these items to make it easier. With friends and family playing, they can help you remember the rules and come up with some strategies. My best advice is always focus down enemies fast. You just don't know how long your luck will hold out when it comes to rolling dice. Other than that, I look forward to trying out some of these other scenarios and seeing how different they are compared to this one. If you guys want to see that playthrough, then head on over to the Time Pals YouTube channel. That's where I think I'll post all the future playthroughs. As for next month's video, I'm gonna keep it a secret as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to help grow my channel, and comment below on what you thought. Check me out on the Time Pals podcast, link in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.